Welcome back. So we have the notebook interface. If you recall, that has this circular kind of icon thing, and we have different notebooks which we may have loaded. When we can flip between these are in different tabs. There's our one and one is two screen, which is just an example of a notebook. And if we wanted to, we could stop this notebook. We could log out of this shell, whatever. What I want to do here is just show you this interface. So here are our files, and you can see our files have a green icon if the notebook is running. If we've got a whole load of notebooks, which is usually the case, most will be black. If they're green, they'll be open in different tabs. We can choose those off the either by clicking here, or we can go to the running screen, and if they are running and we want to stop a notebook, we can just click shut down. So this is quite useful if you have notebooks taking up a lot of memory and you've finished working on one. Don't open multiple versions in different browser tabs, because later on in the module you'll find you run out of resources. What I wanted to show you though, we've seen how to get data out of a notebook. How do we get data in? And where we do that, you could do two things. Remember, we're connected through SSH, Secure Shell, and you can use FileZilla if you want. Instead of using a username and password, you select a key file. It's quite straightforward. Most of the time, though, you can either just use SFTP, as I think we saw already, or even easier, just use this upload button. That browses you to a local window on your home machine. So this is my local machine here. I've got a text document here, which is actually the book Alice in Wonderland. Just say open for that. And it gives us an option to upload then, and we have uploaded that file, and you can see the size of that file there. Something else I want to show you, you will have seen under new, we also have a terminal option. So again, this is very handy if you don't have ready access to the PowerShell or something like that. This is running a command line interface on the container. So it lets you talk to the container in a straightforward way. I'm just going to use the bash shell. There is a cheat sheet of Linux commands, and the way we can tell we're inside the container rather than the virtual machine, well, the container is running in the virtual machine, but you saw before that the username was as your user. Here the username is notebook user, and also this is the particular ID of this container. So here we're talking on Linux inside the container, and if we do the Unix command to list files, ls-l, you can see that alice.txt we just uploaded there, which we could use as data. We'll be using that as data later on, and here's the other thing there. Just in terms of the various commands that one can do, you can zip all the files together, and then you can just unzip them here. So upload a zip file, then unzip them. If we want to move files around, that also works. And we can do things just checking what our host folder looks like. And you can leave this running if you like. We'll be doing things later on, but it's quite handy if we want to use Linux commands. So we've seen that we can use Linux commands inside the notebook by prefacing the Linux command with exclamation mark. But if I want to just see the first few lines of a file, I can do that here and just in the black and white console bit. So practically everything I think that you want to do, you can do through the notebook interface, but quite often you want to just look at things in the console. So the head just lists the first five Linux head command lists the first a few lines in a file. That's quite handy. As we go through, we'll be working with CSV files. You might want to just check that the header is in place and so on. And head is a handy way to do that. We can also use tail, which was the reverse of head, shows us the bottom few lines of a file. Just that's all where all that the book came from. As I said, that is running inside a tab, so our notebook is still where we thought it was. Remember, I said we could just click on it, and that'll open an interface to that one, and we can work with that. I mentioned that you can use Markdown for cells, so this is particularly useful for comments. So Markdown is a simplified kind of HTML syntax, which will you put one hash sign, it gives you a title. You can also just write some text, which will be text. Well, that'll do. And now if I run that, then we get text comment in the notebook, which is extremely useful for explaining ourselves. So what we've done in this little segment is uploaded some data. We haven't used the data. We've also seen how you can use Markdown and how you can execute Linux commands, and we can execute Python commands here as well by changing that. We use the run command to execute things. So 2 **8 give us numbers like that. And I guess that's, yeah, so some of the other icons fairly straightforward. This would, for instance, if I didn't like this particular command, this particular notebook entry, you can see our text commands prefaced by in, the result is out, etc., etc. We can actually look at our cells and we can say clear all output, and that will just show us the source code, which is quite handy. The usual thing is to save the file with the output. What we're going to go on to do next is look at the relationship between folders and the host in folder structure.